Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to Eyes Up Here, Sharkboy. Um, okay, so we're just starting from the beginning.
Just start from the beginning.
Well, okay, so I am thrilled that I saw you this past weekend at the Squared Circle Expo. Now,
Yep.
I know has hit everybody really, really hard. This is one of the first conventions back for me since January of 2020. Have you been out and about like before COVID? Were you actively working or are you just like here and there?
Yeah, I'm just kind of here and there. And then COVID pretty much brought everything to a complete halt. So it was really nice to get out and do this thing in Indianapolis. It's just been such a long time. It was great to see everybody. Great to connect with the fans again. It felt like things were kind of starting to get back to normal finally.
Right. And you had mentioned you worked a tag Saturday night at the Squared Circle Expo. When was the last match before this that you had?
I want to say, I know I did something else in Indianapolis, probably in the fall, and I might have had one other thing, but I don't know. I would say no, October was probably the last time I was in the ring. So just rust was just falling off me in this tag team match.
How did you feel? How's your body feeling?
I'm getting older now. Everything hurts more. It's not as much fun anymore. I mean, the entertaining part is still very fun, but then the way I feel after the match is over, it's the older you get, the harder this. It's a young man's game, that's for sure.
Yeah, I find I love conventions because even though I have trouble sometimes getting up and down out of my chair,
Right.
but it's less toll on the body.
Sure.
And I feel like at this stage in the game, we've all earned the right to not bump anymore and just sign. At
I
these
agree.
conventions. So I love those. I love doing them.
I want to land more of those. I only done a handful really. WrestleCon was the big one. I think maybe we talked about that a little bit. I saw you in New York City a couple of years ago at
Yeah.
WrestleCon. That was the biggest one I've done, but I've done a handful of them, but not enough. I'd like to do more of those. It's like you said, when the biggest physical thing you're doing is getting up up and down out of a chair. That's what you want at this stage in your career, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will if you want to do them, I will definitely keep an ear open for
Yeah.
you and try to help you as much as I can. I think you should be on Cameo.
Yeah, because I'm so technologically great here.
Well, it's not that, but the gear that you're wearing, the Sharkboy mask, I think it is a niche. I think you have that certain something, and I think Cameo would be a great fit for you. But we can talk about that later.
Okay.
I can get you involved in that if you'd like.
What a
Yeah.
recruiter.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, I like
What a
the idea.
recruiter.
That's what I do. But we were talking before. You started at the power plant in '99.
Yes.
And tell us again, who was in that group of guys that you started with?
Well, right when I came in, Jimmy Yang had just started. Jamie Noble was also in my group. And then there were some guys that had already been there for a little while. I don't know where to start. Chuck Palumbo, Mike Sanders, Alan Funk, Crowbar, a whole lot of people. It was a pretty good sized class when I first got there. And then, of course, things started to go downhill for the company, and then the cuts started to come. And it seemed like, I don't know, there might have been 30 or 40 guys when I started. And by the end, it got down to about a dozen or whatever. And so kind of the way the joke was, if you saw the FedEx man coming, get the hell out of there, cut him off, jump him before he can deliver the paperwork that says you've been cut, So the FedEx man was the big heel.
Yeah. When you were training, were you thinking about like the cruiserweight division?
When they signed me, there was actually this project apparently that Eric Bischoff was doing that was it was going to be sort of like the way it was described to me. They were going to do like a Power Rangers pro wrestling kind of like a separate project. And I was actually signed to be a part of that. And so was Jamie Noble, I think Jimmy Yang as well. And so we were brought in for the separate project that never wound up materializing. So some of us sort of got worked into the main roster as a result of that project getting scrapped, I think.
That's really interesting. I've never heard
Yeah.
about that one.
Yeah. It was some kind of separate project they were doing. I don't really know. That the way it was described to me was sort of like Power Rangers. I think it was going to be like a kid oriented kind of show.
Interesting. Did you hear about that, Chad?
I've heard about it in the past. Yes.
Huh. Okay. So it would have been a different show than Thunder or Nitro,
I
and you
think
guys would have
so.
been the stars of this show aimed towards children.
Maybe like a Saturday morning kind of, action adventure kind of wrestling themed thing for kids was kind of what I was picturing. But they wound up scrapping the project before it really, went anywhere at all. So
Yeah. So how did you enjoy your time at WCW? Did you find it pleasing? Because I know like coming from ECW, which I loved, and then going to a place like WWE, it just wasn't my cup of tea. But here you are, you're green and you're switching over and you're getting on television quickly. That's what happened to me. Were you comfortable with the role that they gave you? Did you come up with the Shark Boy gimmick?
yeah, I'd been being I started doing Sharkboy in May of '97, so it was a couple of years on the Indies
Oh,
that I
okay.
was doing it. Yeah, I did. I tell you where I first kind of got recognized was I did the first Brian Pillman Memorial Show in 1998, and I know Chris Canyon was there, and I think he's one of the he's sort of scouting and saw me and came up and talked to me, which blew me away. I was a Mortis fan, so it was kind of it was amazing to me. He came over and said, I'm going to keep an eye on you. You've got some talent and that sort of thing. Wow, holy cow! You couldn't ask for anything more than that. So then in '99, I think I remember Terry Taylor was at that one. So it was kind of like WCW was sending people to sort of scout talent at maybe at certain events, and the Pillman shows was one of them. So '99 was really my big break. I did a cruiserweight tournament. They put me over 3 times in one night. A big surprise happened at the end. Mick Foley and Al Snow and D'Lo Brown ran out and lifted me up on their shoulders and carried me around the ring. And so this story, of course, made it back to WCW, and I got signed right after that. So that was kind
Wow.
of, yeah, that's kind of the way it happened.
You never know who's watching you.
Right.
True.
Well, it was a high profile thing, the Pillman shows, because all 3 of the major companies sent representatives. WWE, WCW, and ECW on every show was represented. And that was something that wasn't happening in the business at all at that time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you would have done well in ECW.
Yeah. And everybody thinks I was there for some reason. People go,
Really?
I remember seeing you in ECW. I'm like, no, you don't. I was never in ECW. So, yeah, it
That
seems like the gimmick would have fit, right? It would have fit right in, though.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our wrestlers didn't really have gimmicks, so to speak, but I think yours would have been a good fit for some crazy reason. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just feel like it would have worked,
Yeah.
but
I think so, too.
that's a shame. I mean, there's so many people. There are so many people that wanted to work for ECW that never did work for ECW that I feel like if we had them, it just would have worked, and I think you would have been one of them. But
Well, thank you.
yeah, yeah. But I know there was a gimmick for a little bit with you and Daphne.
Mhm.
You were Shark Boy, she was Shark Girl. I feel like she came up with that, but what was the story behind that pairing?
Yeah, she just kind of came to me and said, "I really want to be Shark Girl," and she,
Now this was this in
honestly,
TNA?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I believe so. Yeah,
okay.
she had said that to me, and she was really, she's like, I've got somebody working on a mask. I know what I want it to look like. And she was just very excited about the idea. And I was flattered because I was a fan of her work, in
Yeah.
WCW. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. If anybody's going to be Shark Girl, it's got to be you, obviously. So so yeah, she did that. And then we did it, I think, maybe once or twice on TNA, maybe. And then we did it on the Indies some, you know, and that was really all we got to do with it. But yeah, always great working with her, and
There's
she's
the
awesome. She's a
picture.
sweetheart. There you go. There we
There's
are.
the picture.
Yeah,
So the
good looking
Office and
couple.
TNA didn't like the pairing?
I'm not sure exactly what. I know, when I first, it was kind of like I just gotten to TNA, and they came to me with the idea, and I remember my first reaction was, well, they don't really know who I am yet. So it might be kind of soon to throw a second character. You know what I mean? So I know I was initially, I was a little bit resistant to doing it on TNA. I would have rather established Sharkboy for a few months and then, oh, look, and there's this Shark Girl too. I thought that, you know what I mean? I thought that would have been the way to do it. So I know initially I may have drug my feet a little bit on the idea, but I was never opposed to it. I wanted to do it. It's just I thought it would have been smarter to establish Sharkboy first.
Gotcha.
That was how I felt about it then.
So you've been working before the power plant. You said you were a couple of years in the indies, and then you get your big break. You work for WCW. Doesn't really work out because the company goes under. A year goes by, and then TNA comes around. Now, for that year, like, do you go back to the indies? Are you heartbroken? Did you think your career was over? Like, where's your mind at once WCW folds?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought my career was over. Not at that point. I was still pretty young. I was in my early to mid 20s there. So I mean, I figured I had plenty of time to, I just was going to have to find another way back up, back up there.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, what's going to happen? Is it just going to be WWE and that's it? Or is there not going to be another? So I was really excited to find out that the Jarretts were starting TNA, and I saw that as a big opportunity. I knew Jeff already, and Jeremy Borash was very instrumental in helping me get a tryout there as well. So between Jeff and Jeremy, I knew I would at least have an opportunity with TNA. And I never left the indies, to be honest with you. I mean, I was still kind of, even when I was with WCW, if an opportunity popped up, I thought I could go do another show, I would. And even when I was with TNA, I worked the indies pretty much the whole time. So, I never really left the indies, and I never gave up, especially at that point in time. I really thought that I still would get another opportunity, and thankfully I did.
So when you worked for WCW, you were allowed to work other shots, even though you're
I
on
didn't say
contract?
that. we figured out ways to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even when we were at the power plant, that was kind of the thing. We would, 3 or 4 of us would go do an indie, and mum's the word, hush, hush. And they kind of looked the other way. The big rule was don't get hurt. As long as you didn't get hurt on the indie, there wasn't going to be a problem. But, a lot of guys did that. I think not so much for the money. The money was just as terrible as it always is on the indies, but it was more the experience. A lot of us weren't working in front of crowds very often. Just working out in the power plant was not quite the same thing.
Now, did your opportunities have to go through the office, or were you just booking yourself?
Yeah, we were pretty much just booking ourselves.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
I'm privy to all this.
Well, the guys that were down there knew the places in Atlanta, around Atlanta, where you could go and work an independent show. You know what I mean? So we would, there were certain places that, like I said, the office just kind of looked the other way. You were in trouble if you got hurt, though. I found that out firsthand. So
because you got hurt on one of the shows?
Yeah, Jimmy Yang kicked me in the ear and split my ear open.
Jimmy Yang Wang.
Yeah, he was green. He was green as grass. He was green as grass back then, but yeah, it bled through the mask. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
And so I had to go to the doctor. I had to go to the emergency room that night, and they glued it shut, my ear, right? And they said it should be fine. It'll heal back up. Everything will be fine. Just be very careful. So I had to go in the power plant the next morning and pretend like nothing was wrong with my ear. So I go to lock up with one of the other guys, and on the lockup, boom, blood everywhere.
Oh.
I busted it back open. So now WCW is sending me to the emergency room under the, guys that I had been hurt at one of their practices. Okay. So I get there, and the doctor's like, what is all over this is glue. Did you just have this, and he was furious with me. He's like, I can't believe you got in the ring today like this. He says, and they had to put this really painful stitch or two in there that was really awful. Nice. And he said, you're lucky I don't have to bring in a cosmetic surgeon. You almost lost your ear. So that was all done under the guise of not letting the office find out we were doing independent shows.
Now, can I make a suggestion? And this is probably 20 years too late, but why didn't you wear your mask to the power plant that day and just cushion up that ear with a bunch of gauze and have
Yeah,
the mask over you, and nobody would have known about your ear.
maybe, but I would have had to do that for like 2 weeks or whatever, however long it takes for the ear to heal, right?
Of course, but you're living
Yeah.
the gimmick. I'm in
Yeah.
gimmick 24/7. I'm just going to wear my mask all day.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. I would have stuck out. Nobody else was wearing their gimmick to practice. Everybody had
That's
sweatpants on.
determination. You were getting into your role.
I love it. I would, in hindsight, I probably should have done exactly what you're saying.
It would have covered up your ear for
And
sure.
then you take the mask off. You go, oh, I don't know. My ear got caught on something in the mask. Look what happened to it. It's all
Yeah.
messed up now.
Exactly.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. So now you're in TNA. You said you were there for 10 years.
Give or take, yeah. My character, I think I had a contract for maybe 9 or 10 years. They would, they'd put me on the shelf sometimes and take me back off the shelf, and so it kind of felt very kind of off and on. But I was under contract to them for probably maybe 9 or 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. That's a
Uh-huh.
long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did you leave?
I'll tell you, it got to a point where I had, a certain number of guaranteed dates as you get with a contract. And I got a call from Terry Taylor and he said, we're not going to be able to meet your dates. We're probably going to wind up exercising the out clause and maybe we'll talk about, and I said, well, I'm still under contract for another three or 4 months or whatever. And you're telling me I won't be working in that time. He said, no, we don't think we'll be able to match what we told you, So at that point I said, well, you might as well just give me my release then. He's like, you're asking for your release? And I said, well, you're telling me you're going to keep me under contract for 3 or 4 months and not use me. So yeah, I'd rather, he said, well, if you think you can find opportunities elsewhere. And I said, well, I don't know if I can or not, but I know I don't want to stay under contract with someone who's not going to use me. So yeah, I asked for my release at that point. It just felt like the right time.
But would you have been paid for that 4 months if you
No.
stayed?
Not the way no, it wasn't a guaranteed,
Okay.
not the way it was set up. I wouldn't have been paid. So
Yeah,
I
because I
didn't
would have rode that till the very last minute if I was going to get
well,
paid
sure.
staying at home for
Yeah,
4
if
months.
I was getting a check every week, yeah, no problem. But that's not the way it was set up. So,
Okay, I gotcha.
yeah.
So when you were released, what year was that?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I had to guess. Would that have been 2010, right about then? Something like that.
Okay, so maybe the last decade. You're not working for a major Fred. You're still doing indies here and there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are
Pretty
you
much,
loving
yeah.
life more that you can make your own decisions?
Oh, that's a really good question. I tell you, I've completely rebooted things. I've got a new, I'm on my second marriage. I've got a new kid. So yes, I enjoy all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Instead of a new car, he has a new kid.
I have a new kid. Went out and bought a new kid. Yeah. No, I mean, yes, I'm enjoying life more now. I do feel like I'm more in control. I'm definitely smarter about everything. I mean, the business and family and everything. So yeah, I see this. I see this as definitely a good time in my life for sure. Do I miss being on national television? Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of made all of this possible, was getting to be on national TV and they made an action figure out of me. They put me in a video game. Of course you miss that kind of thing when it goes away, but I'm still kind of reaping the benefits of all of that now. So.
Right.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that you look back and people talk about, the 80s and the early 90s, these iconic names and the guys that'll live on forever on shows. But your character, your gimmick is one of those modern day gimmicks that's going to be able to live on forever, because people, as they find you and they see this shark mask, you become identifiable. And to think, when I first started watching you all the way back when you debuted in TNA to now, it's like, it's unbelievable how long the gimmick has lasted. And that's a testament to your work.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And it's like you said with, I always say kids love robots, insects, and sharks, and like kids are just always going to be sort of drawn to this character. I saw it at the convention in Indianapolis. These kids would come over and be, oh my, and how do they know who I am? They're too young to see me on television. But it's because their parents or somebody said, hey, look, there's this guy who dressed like a shark. And, thanks to YouTube, I'm alive forever. And, so yeah, it is one of those things. It's hung around. And I hope, it's like you said, it'll just continue to stay around, and I've been really lucky in that regard, I think.
No, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
boobs have the same effect.
They do. Different though.
Sometimes men will say, I don't know who you are, but your
Right.
boobs look pretty good. Can I get a
Yeah.
picture? Hell yeah,
I
you
think
can.
that might even be more true than what I just said. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
That's
gosh.
cool.
Well, where can people find you if they want to know more about Sharkboy?
I'm on Twitter, and my handle is Sharkboy24_7. That's me on Twitter. And that's really the best place because anything that happens, I get on there and sort of talk about it, plug it, or whatever. So that's what I would say. Come visit me at Twitter. Follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
We
Well,
Whatever
absolutely
you
will.
I would love to talk to you a little more about getting you out there because I feel
Yeah.
like I can lend a helping hand, so to speak.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
maybe
That'd
we
be
can
great.
discuss stuff further later. But I'm so happy I ran into you. I love running into guys that I don't get to see very often. So you know, and like I said, you caught me after that first glass of whiskey, so I was a little woo. But it was
Oh,
great
hey, you know
seeing.
what? I just thought of something else I could plug.
Oh yeah.
I have a pro wrestling tees.
Oh yeah.
I'm on there. I got some t-shirts on there. But
So you just look under Sharkboy.
yeah, I'm the only
Okay.
one.
There you
The
go.
only one. Oh, who else would dress like this, right?
Well, I love the gimmick. I think it's brilliant. And like you said, it you know, it draws you're gonna draw the kids because of the mask, but you're gonna draw the adults because of your talent.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I loved running into you too, and I don't do a whole lot of these things. I don't know if you can tell that by by the problems I had with the technology here, but yeah, I don't do like when you asked me, I said I will do this for you,
I
Francine.
I appreciate that. Like I said, it's so nice. I just felt like people should know what's going on with you. And
Well,
if you
thank you.
do want to tip your toes in the water, we got to get your face out there. So
Yeah,
even if it's under a mask, but this is how
yeah.
people know who you are. So I'm thrilled to chat with you and you know, keep in touch. And if you need anything, let me know.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you both for having me. Thank you, Francine.
Awesome.
I
Thanks,
will
Shark
talk to you
Boy.
soon, my friend.
Okay, take care, guys.
See ya.
Take care.
All right, let's finish up here on this end,
Okay.
so we don't have to go and record
Yes.
10 million times, but we'll go right into our Patreon. So for the magic of editing, nobody had to go through what we had to get through getting Shark Boy connected on a few different potential multi-mediums here, but we got it done, and that's the most important part. Now his picture was frozen, but we just went with it.
Right. And that was fine because I heard him crystal clear. So
Exactly.
no worries about that.
So
But
you
he's
can't.
such a nice guy.
Yes.
And I feel like he's, again, he's one of the ones that are underrated and people, you know, may not know he's still out there, but he is. He's out and about and he looks great and he's just a nice person. So I really like Sharkboy a lot.